Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We'll be covering 4 different topics. The first one is Matt Chapman finally signing, and him signing with the San Francisco Giants, of course. So that's our big story of the weekend. We'll be talking about that first and foremost. Then we'll be talking about other free agents, predictions where they go, how Chapman could affect them, that kind of stuff. Third, we'll be talking about Zach Wheeler signing an extension with the Philadelphia Phillies and what's happening there. And finally, just some general news around the league and stories as well. But before we do that, I would like to ask you to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read on the air, please use the link of gsmcpodcast.net. Make sure, again, to like and follow the show. Subscribe as well. I noticed 51% of you that are watching my content and our content as a network in general are not subscribed, so please do make sure that you do subscribe. You get notified every time we upload. You get notified every time we do anything. So, it really does help us make sure you're in tune with the content. And, thank you so much for that. And let's get into our first topic here, which, of course, is the main story. Oh, sorry. That's not our first topic. That's not good. That's our first topic. There we go. The main story of the weekend, the big baseball thing that's been going on right now. And that, of course, is Matt Chapman signing with the San Francisco Giants. Now, of course, Matt Chapman was part of the illustrious Boris 4, the 4 free agents represented by Scott Boras, who had not signed yet closer to spring training, even though they were bona fide stars in this league. Cody Bellinger, also part of that sign before him. Chapman then followed, and then we only had 2 left. We'll be talking about that in segment 2, don't worry, so we're not going to get too ahead of ourselves right now. But, so Matt Chapman went to the San Francisco Giants over the weekend. Let's talk about it. So the deal is structured as a 1-year deal structured really as a 1-year deal, but in reality, it's a 3-year deal with 2 player opt-outs. It's 3 years, $54 million. I think it's, so Chapman gets, of course, this 1 year, and then he can opt out after the second year, after the first year and after the second year. So it's very similar to the Bellinger contract in a way of that you have the potential of going up to a long-term deal. But I don't think either team wants that because the player wants that because that means he's not performing very well if he does use that player option. So my general thoughts on the deal are, first of all, I always knew Chapman was going to go to the Giants. We heard a report from Farhan Zaidi himself, who is the Giants' president of baseball operations, that they weren't looking to make any more significant moves for the offseason. While that did make sense, in my opinion, I just thought Chapman was such the perfect fit for them. And, no matter what he said, sorry about that, I did ultimately think Chapman would end up in San Francisco, and that's what happened. I thought, even though that it made sense that they didn't want any more significant moves, Chapman just made too much sense to the Giants. We've talked about this a million times now, but now it's even more relevant because he has ended up signing there. But he's from the Bay Area. He used to play in the Bay Area when he was with Oakland. He used to play for Bob Melvin, who was the Giants' new manager. Giants had a clear need at third base. It made so much sense for Chapman to go to the Giants. Even when Zaidi did say what he said, I kind of always had it in the back of my mind that, I said it on here as well, that, okay, I still think Chapman to the Giants makes too much sense. And inevitably it did, and he ends up going there. So my general thoughts on the deal, though, are that I love this deal for the player and the team. First, for the team, Chapman comes with a lot of risks. I'm not going to deny that right now. There was a reason, he was on the market as long as he was, because he's not a perfect player. He's not a perfect, guy you're giving a huge contract to. But you're giving him not much for a year, most likely, around 20 to 18 million, depending on how the contract is structured. I know it's a little bit different than usual. So, the fact that you're able to get a guy like Matt Chapman, who is a bona fide all-star in this league, a guy who definitely is a star, for that little of money on a 1-year deal, potentially going up to 3, is just incredible value in my opinion. Now, I think the Giants had a clear need at third base. Really, the guy they had there now was J.D. Davis, who was kind of the opposite of Matt Chapman, because Matt Chapman is one of the better defenders in the league at third base and overall in the league in general. Probably at this point one of the greatest defenders at third base in baseball history. I don't think it's that crazy to say with how long he's been in the league. And you had J.D. Davis there, who's a fine player. It's just, as a Mets fan who watched him for a long time on my team, I can tell you he comes with a lot of downsides. He can't really field that well. He can't hit high fastballs. I'm sure San Francisco Giants fans have seen this when watching him the past year and a half. So I think there's a clear need at third base to upgrade, especially if you do want to compete, as you said you do. And I think Chapman is a great fit for them. Again, getting him on this type of contract to me is such a steal. Now, again, he comes with great defense, but the bat is up and down. It's a little spotty, and that's, I think, why a lot of teams didn't want to give him a huge contract. But the fact is, you're getting him for this bargain, and you have to do it no matter what. Even if his offense isn't that great, even if it's a little below average or even average, you're still getting great defense for not a big price, and you're also getting name value. Matt Chapman definitely is a name value guy. A lot of people know who he is. So I think you're definitely getting that as well. So I love the deal for the Giants. I thought the deal made a lot of sense for Chapman. He obviously wasn't going to get the huge deal he was looking for. He turned down a huge extension from the Blue Jays twice, apparently. So it didn't really work out for him. But he gets to go to the Giants, a place where he's clearly comfortable because of the connections he has there with the Bay Area, with Bob Melvin. Gets to have a bounce back year in a way. He didn't have a bad year last year, but I guess a better year to prove to the team that he is worth the contract that he would like to get. And he goes back in the market next year. Hopefully secures the contract he wants, whatever it's going to be, 7 years, 200, whatever he wants it to be. So, I love the deal for both team and player. I thought it made so much sense from the start. I really did. It was just such a perfect fit of team and player. Sorry about that again. And I really thought it was just a perfect match. In the preseason, I didn't have him before my offseason predictions. I wasn't on the show obviously at the time, but in my preseason predictions just for myself, I did not have him going to the Giants, but I still had them as one of the better fits for him, just because again of all these connections. That was even before Bob Melvin was hired. Once Melvin was hired, it was pretty clear that the Giants made too much sense for Chapman. And eventually he does go there. Now, looking at the Giants now, just an overlook of their team, I don't think Chapman pushes them into automatic playoff contender status. I still think they're a really good team. Really good kind of a stretch. I still think they're a good team. But the problem with the NL is there's a lot of good teams and not a lot of teams outside of that tier. In my opinion, right now, you have you have probably 4 tiers of teams. You have the elite contenders, which is Atlanta and Los Angeles. You have the playoff locks in Philadelphia and Arizona. And then you have like 5 or 6 teams that are just really good, but aren't good enough to be ultimate contenders or even clinch a playoff spot. You have, teams I would classify in this spot as the Mets first. You have the Reds. You have the Cubs. You have the Giants. You have the Padres. Giants, I think we're already there, and I think Chapman still helps them. You can even argue teams like the Pirates or the Cardinals, even the Brewers. I wouldn't personally. I have the Cubs there already, but I wouldn't argue those 3 teams. But there's too many good teams in the NL. There's 2 elite teams, 2 really good teams, and then just 5 or 6 good teams. And the Giants, I think, are definitely bunched in there. Again, Matt Chapman's a really good player, but I don't think he makes them an automatic World Series contender. As of right now, I don't think I'd have them making the playoffs. I'd still give that 6th seed probably. I'd probably give it to the Mets still. Mets, Cubs, or Giants I would have. So I don't, as much as I don't have them, I still think they're in the running for it. I still think they're a really good team. I do think the Chapman addition helps them a lot. I just see the big problem with them right now is pitching. And we're going to talk about how they can maybe improve that pitching in the next segment. But they just had so many injuries, and it's just so killer to that team. First losing Alex Cobb. I love Alex Cobb. I think he's one of the most underrated players in baseball. Just such a solid player who can, as soon as he signed that contract in San Francisco. He's just been such a good pitcher, really that legit number 2 guy behind Logan Webb. You traded for Robbie Wright, who you traded for. You knew he was going to be out for the first half of the season, so that's not really that crazy. But still, it is a loss. You then, you lose Tristan Beck because of a weird thing in his arm. You have Jordan Hicks, who is an interesting case because he's trying to transition from a hard-throwing reliever to a starter. So that's an interesting situation to watch unfold. I don't necessarily disagree with what the Giants are trying to do there. I think it makes a lot of sense considering right now, because of the way starting pitching contracts are so expensive. But it is still a question mark because you're taking Jordan Hicks, who was an injury-prone reliever, and trying to make him into a legit starter. So I think it's an interesting experiment to see how it goes. And you have, first of all, you have Logan Webb, who of course is an ace, no doubt about that. Definitely number one. After that, you have guys like, you have Kyle Harrison, who I'm very high on. I think he's a great pitcher. I think is going to be a big part of that rotation. But again, is a rookie. You have Jordan Hicks, again, who comes with some question marks. So as much as the Giants are a good team, they have a good amount of question marks. And I think Chapman's a really good player, but I don't think he automatically just puts them in that top tier of contention. Could they sign a guy like Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery to solidify that pitching? I think so. We're gonna talk about that next segment. Don't worry. So I'm not going to go into it too much, but that's definitely possible. It's just the Giants have a lot of question marks right now, and as much as the Chapman signing is nice, there still are some things that need to be solved. You look at your offense right now. We talked a lot about the pitching injuries. The offense is so solid. Catcher, you have Patrick Bailey, who's a rising star, in my opinion. Had a great season last year. Can be their solution at catcher since Buster Posey retired and Joey Bart did not work out there. You have Wilmer Flores, who's a nice do everything player. Great hitter, can play multiple positions. You have Marco Luciano, who's going to be your shortstop. Matt Chapman now, of course, sliding in a third. You have Conforto, you have Mike Yastrzemski, you have the recently signed Jung-Hoo Lee. So the Giants have a good team. It's just they're in mediocrity right now. I think they're probably an 81 team right now if you look at it. Jorge Soler, Jung-Hoo Lee, Matt Chapman, all great signings. It's just it doesn't put them in that upper echelon of teams of those 4 teams that I think are playoff locks. So I think they needed something. I think they need something to kind of pull themselves away from the pack, and I think you can say that with the other teams I mentioned there. The Mets, the Cubs, the Padres, the Reds, other teams as well. So I think that's the problem with the NL right now. It's just that there's too many good teams, not great teams. And if I'm one of those mediocre teams that I have in this little group here, I do a big move that can pull myself away from the pack, whether that's a trade, whether that's a signing. I understand this later in the season, but in the spring training, but you still have guys that are out there, which we're going to talk about next. Like I said, there's still some trade candidates out there that I'm sure you could get. So I don't think it's that crazy to think about, but just going back to this Giants overall, I still do love the signing, just pure bang for your buck mentality, and I think it was pretty great for that remark of it. I mean, again, getting a really good third baseman for this kind of price is pretty amazing, especially since he was still out there. I think it's a very good fit, just organization, team, player-wise as well. So I really do like this fit for the Giants. I like the signing. I'm glad the market's finally moving. As you can see, we kind of have a lot of stuff to talk about today, so I'm glad the market is finally moving. And I'm glad for the Giants. I still think they need another move, but Soler, Chapman signing in the past few weeks, great moves. Good job to see holes in your team and fill them right away. So great moves by the Giants. I still think they're kind of mediocre, but a lot of teams are, and if everything goes right for them, if when their pitching comes back, it performs really well, I don't see any reason why they can't make the playoffs, but it's going to be hard with the amount of teams that are kind of like them in the NL this year. So that is our first segment here. We're going to take a break here, but our second segment is going to be about the free agents. The other free agents not named Matt Chapman. How does the Chapman signing affect them? Did we learn anything over the weekend about them? That kind of stuff. So, we're going to do that, but first we're going to go to a break, and then we'll talk about it. So, thank you so much for that, and I'll see you after the break. Thanks, guys.